Your body is producing a perfectly normal molecule, one that every human body needs to survive. It helps your immune system defend you. It helps regulate stomach acid. It acts as a chemical messenger in your brain. Histamine is not the enemy. But here's what most explanations miss. The problem is not that your body makes histamine. Every body does that. The problem is the clearing system, the biological machinery that is supposed to break histamine down after it has done its job. And if that system is not working well, histamine stops being helpful and starts becoming disruptive. That is what this video is going to give you. Not another food list, not another supplement shortcut, the actual mechanism. A clear biological explanation for why your symptoms are happening, step by step, in a way that actually makes sense. I'm Kyle Boatman, a nurse practitioner with training in functional genomics. On this channel, I explain why histamine treatment works for some people and completely fails for others. And I do it by going deeper than food lists and antihistamines, by going into the biology. If you're watching this, I already know something about you. You've probably seen more than one doctor. Maybe an allergist, maybe a GI specialist, maybe even a cardiologist for palpitations no one could explain. Maybe you were told your labs were normal. And that was the end of the conversation. What's been missing is a framework, a clear biological explanation that connects the dots between your symptoms and one coherent root cause. By the end of this video, you'll have that framework. You'll understand what histamine is, why your clearing system is struggling, what your symptoms have in common, and what to do next. Let's start at the beginning. What is histamine? Chapter 1. Histamine is a small chemical molecule, what we call a biogenic amine, that your body manufactures on purpose for very good reasons. It's part of your immune response. When you get stung by a bee, histamine rushes to the site and causes that inflammation, that is, your immune system working correctly. Histamine also controls the amount of stomach acid your gut produces. It acts as a neurotransmitter in your brain, affecting alertness, memory, and your sleep-wake cycle. And your body gets histamine from two places. It makes it internally through your own cells, especially mast cells, and it absorbs it externally through the food you eat. So in a healthy system, histamine is doing a job. It's not a toxin. It's not an allergen. It's a signal molecule. And when the signaling is done, your body clears it. That's the key word, clears it. In histamine intolerance, the core problem is that your body's ability to clear histamine is impaired. The histamine comes in, does its job, and then lingers, builds up, overflows, and that overflow is your symptoms. Let me give you a framework that's going to make everything else in this video click. I want you to picture a bucket. Your body is that bucket. Chapter 2. Every day, histamine flows into the bucket. From the food you eat, from the bacteria in your gut, from stress hormones, from your own mast cells, from your menstrual cycle if you have one. And at the bottom of that bucket, there is a drain. That drain is your body's histamine clearing system. When the drain works well, you handle histamine fine. The bucket never overflows. You can eat a plate of leftover tomato sauce and feel completely normal. But when the drain is slow or partially blocked, the bucket fills faster than it can empty. And when it overflows, that is your histamine reaction. This is why your reactions seem inconsistent. Some days you eat avocado with no problem. Other days, the same avocado sends you to the couch for 3 hours. That's not random. That's because your bucket was already half full on the days you reacted. From stress, poor sleep, hormonal shifts, or something else that was filling the bucket before the food ever arrived. The avocado wasn't the problem. It was just the last drop that pushed it over. Chapter 3. There are two primary enzymes responsible for clearing histamine from your body. The first is called DAO, diamine oxidase. DAO lives primarily in the lining of your small intestine, and its job is to break down histamine from the food you eat before that histamine can be absorbed into your bloodstream. Think of DAO as the bouncer at the door. It stops the histamine before it gets in. When DAO is working well, most of the histamine from your food never makes it past your gut. When DAO is low or depleted, histamine from your food gets absorbed into your system unchecked. And that's when the bucket starts filling from the food side. What depletes DAO? A few common things you may not expect. Alcohol, especially wine and beer, directly suppresses DAO activity. Anti-inflammatory medications like ibuprofen are among the most common DAO blockers that nobody talks about. Certain antidepressants, some antibiotics, and gut damage from conditions like celiac disease or increased intestinal permeability, sometimes called leaky gut, also significantly reduce DAO production. And here's what most practitioners miss entirely. DAO impairment appears to be a major piece of the puzzle for many people with these symptom patterns. Your own DAO status depends on your genetics, your gut health, and what's actively depleting the system. The takeaway is not one exact number. It's that impaired histamine clearance is far more common in this picture than most people realize. But DAO is only half of the drain. The second enzyme is called HNMT, histamine N-methyltransferase. And HNMT works differently. Where DAO clears histamine in your gut and bloodstream, HNMT clears histamine inside your cells, particularly in your brain and nervous system. HNMT requires something called SAMe, a molecule your body produces through a process called methylation. If your methylation is impaired, which many people don't realize, your brain's ability to clear histamine slows down. This is one reason anxiety, brain fog, insomnia, and mood changes show up alongside histamine issues. Research suggests that when HNMT activity is reduced, histamine may accumulate in the central nervous system, and that accumulation could contribute to neurological symptoms that feel completely disconnected from anything you ate. It's not fully mapped yet, but the connection is real, and it's one of the most important areas of emerging research in this field. And some of you, because of specific gene variants we'll cover in an upcoming video, may be starting with reduced HNMT capacity before you eat a single bite of food. That's not a certainty from a gene test alone, but it's a lead worth following, because it changes everything about how you approach this. So up to this point, here's the big picture. Histamine is not the problem by itself. The issue is whether your body can clear it fast enough once it is there. Chapter 4. Now let's talk about symptoms, because this is where most histamine education gets it wrong. The typical picture of histamine intolerance, the one most practitioners know, looks like an allergy. Hives, itchy eyes, runny nose, sneezing. And yes, those are histamine symptoms, but they are not the full picture, not even close. Migraines and headaches, especially ones that come on after eating. Anxiety that appears out of nowhere and doesn't have a psychological trigger. Insomnia, particularly waking at 3 or 4 in the morning and being unable to go back to sleep. Brain fog that doesn't respond to sleep or rest. Heart palpitations, a racing or fluttering sensation that has no cardiac explanation. GI symptoms, bloating, diarrhea, cramping that looks like IBS. Facial flushing and skin warmth. menstrual symptoms that get dramatically worse in specific phases of the cycle, joint pain that wanders and fluctuates, and a deep, persistent fatigue that never quite responds to rest. If you're watching this right now and you just checked off 5 or more of those, you are not imagining things. Your symptoms are connected, and there is a biological explanation for every single one. And if your number was lower than that, don't self-exclude. Most people with histamine intolerance carry a consistent cluster of 4 to 6 symptoms. You don't need the full list. The pattern is what matters, not the count. Chapter 5. Let's go deeper into the bucket, because understanding what fills it changes everything about how you approach this condition. The histamine bucket has 4 main categories of input. Category 1, dietary histamine. These are foods that contain histamine directly. Aged cheeses, cured meats, fermented foods. Leftovers, because histamine builds in food as it ages. Wine and beer, smoked fish. These are direct contributors. They go straight into the bucket. Category 2, histamine-liberating foods. These are foods that may not contain much histamine themselves, but can trigger your mast cells to release histamine they've already stored. Strawberries, citrus, tomatoes, spinach, chocolate, certain additives, including things like benzoates and sulfites. These are liberators, not just carriers. This is why some people react to foods that are not technically high histamine. Category 3, DAO blockers. These are foods and substances that reduce your ability to clear histamine. Alcohol is the best known example because it directly suppresses DAO activity. Certain medications, discussed earlier in this video, can do the same thing. These are not just filling the bucket, they are slowing the drain. Category 4, endogenous histamine. This is histamine your own body produces from the inside. Gut bacteria that manufacture histamine directly. Mast cells that activate in response to stress, infections, temperature shifts, hormonal changes, or immune triggers. This is the category that explains why diet alone never fully solves this for most people, because a meaningful portion of the bucket is internal. Chapter 6. It's the middle of the week. Your sleep has been awful for 2 nights, and work has been total chaos. Your nervous system already feels a little wired. Then you eat what looks like a healthy lunch: spinach, avocado, tomatoes, maybe leftovers from the night before. An hour later, your head feels strange. Your heart starts fluttering. You feel anxious, but there is no obvious psychological reason for it. And that night, you wake up at 3 a.m. and cannot get back to sleep. That is not random. Your bucket was already loaded before the meal ever hit your system. The food mattered, yes, but the food was not the whole story. The total load mattered. The drain state mattered. The timing mattered. Chapter 7. One quick distinction before we close. You may have heard of MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome. Both involve histamine, but they are not the same. Histamine intolerance is a clearance problem. The drain is slow. MCAS is overreactive mast cells releasing histamine too easily. Some people have both. So here's your framework. 4 things fill the bucket: dietary histamine, histamine liberators, DAO blockers, and the histamine your own body makes. Everything else on this channel maps back to one of those 4, and this is why the bucket matters. It explains why you can eat the same food on Monday and feel fine, then eat it Thursday and react for hours. You lowered the input. You didn't fix the drain. Here's where to start. First, download the free 7-day low histamine meal plan and symptom tracker below. One link, two tools. The meal plan gives you a cleaner baseline. The tracker shows you your pattern, what you ate, when you reacted, your stress, your sleep, your cycle. Patterns show up fast when you stop guessing. Second, watch the next video linked on your screen, because there's one question that keeps coming up in my comments. Can histamine intolerance actually be reversed, or is this something you manage forever? That's what we're getting into next. You are not crazy. You are not a hypochondriac, and you were never overreacting. There is a biological reason for your symptoms, and this channel exists to help you understand it clearly, one piece at a time. I'm Kyle Boatman. I'll see you in the next one.